Hello, Ted Buds. Hannah here. We are taking a short little break to get caught up on some amazing new episodes for you guys. In the meantime, we're going to share some throwbacks because there is just so many good episodes that you may have missed. We'll be back so soon with brand new content. If you guys have any episode ideas that you want to see, be sure to head over to the website, Up-Beet Dietitians.com, and you can fill out the form to leave any episode suggestions that you might have. Let us know what you want to hear about. Enjoy these throwbacks, and we'll see you guys soon with some brand new podcast episodes. We are getting back into I was going to say guest train, but that just sounds stupid. We have guests back on the podcast now. We took a little hiatus from it. Just too many life events for Emily and I going on the last few months that it was just hard to also throw some guests in there and get our schedules to all work out. So we took a little break, but we are back, and bringing our hiatus to an end is Allison Mandell. Allison's a friend that we met recently at a nutrition conference. She is a non-diet, health at every size aligned, and weight inclusive registered dietitian. She works as an eating disorder dietitian at a partial hospital and intensive outpatient program in New Jersey during the day, and as a remote dietitian for a private practice at night. As an undergrad, she completed a dual degree in nutrition and psychology, and she later completed her master's at Rutgers University, where she wrote her thesis exploring the relationships of psychological characteristics and disordered eating behaviors with dieting among college students.
Allison specializes in eating disorders, disordered eating, and intuitive eating. She started her career working with adolescents and young adult women with eating disorders at a residential treatment facility in New Jersey. Passionate about helping other humans heal and normalize their relationship with food in their bodies, Allison believes that food is so much more than nutrition. Food is an experience and a way to connect with others and make memories. We are so excited for you to listen to this episode. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. It feels like forever since we've had a guest on here. So we are so excited to bring Allison on. She's going to talk about a really awesome topic today, and let's get right into it. Allison, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you being here.
I'm so excited that this all worked out.
Let's get right into it. Tell us about you. We'll give a little backstory because sometimes we talk about how we know each other. We met Allison at this past FNCE 2022 in Florida. Another very similar minded dietitian like us who preaches HAES, intuitive eating, food freedom, all the fun stuff. And she just all clicked. And we also know Chelsea. Chelsea was on here as well.
I was gonna say, we should mention Chelsea. Listeners know Chelsea.
Yeah. So go listen to Chelsea's episode and then listen to as you're listening to Allison's. Not at the same time. But we all hung out together. I don't know if they care to hear that.
They're dying to know.
That's how we met.
They're dying to know.
They want to know our dietitian social lives. So anyway, Allison, let's talk about you. Walk us through, what do you do for work, a day in the life, previous education, hobbies, anything you want to share. Okay,
cool. So I am an eating disorder registered dietitian. I spend my days working at a PHP IOP program, so a partial hospitalization and an intensive outpatient program. And then 2 nights a week, I do remote nutrition counseling for a private practice that is based in Connecticut, which is kind of a new thing for me right now, but I really, really like it. So I'm happy about that. I am, yes, like you said, an intuitive eating, HAES aligned, anti-diet registered dietitian. And I'm sure just like you guys, that is not stuff that you learned in school. So so I learned all of that actually while I was, it was previously before graduate school, I was going back to school. So actually this is a great time to kind of introduce why I'm so knowledgeable about this specific topic. So to make a long story short, I spent an extended period of time in undergrad because of my disordered eating disorder ways. And when I graduated school, I got a bachelor's degree in nutrition and psychology. And when I left school, I wasn't able to become a dietitian because my GPA was, for lack of better words, like completely shit, because of my inability to use my brain because I was barely eating in undergrad. And by the time that I finally got, my shit together, it was too late. And so when I graduated school, I spent about 2 years serving, kind of really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I remember this distinctly because this was just like my aha moment that when I was serving, I had a manager who, and I'm forgetting how this kind of discussion came about, but she basically said to me that, her father wouldn't pay for school unless she lost weight. And for some reason, I mean, that's incredibly problematic, but for some reason, that was just like my aha moment. And I was just like, what the fuck are you doing, Allison? Go back to school. You want to be a dietitian. And, I could never really see myself being anything but that. So, thankfully, I had a pretty good rapport with the didactic director at Rutgers because she had been a previous professor. And when I decided to go back to school, I had emailed her. I was like, I found this certification program at another school and I wanted to get her thoughts on it. And so then I went to go see her. And it had been like over 2 years since I had seen her. And when I went back, she was basically telling me that I could come back to school as a non-matriculating student, take the courses that I needed to apply for the dietetic internship, and like that was great. And so I went back to school, ended up doing a lot better than I think anyone thought that I would do, considering my past as an undergrad. And they asked me to stay on for graduate school and my dietetic internship, and that's kind of where I started learning more about intuitive eating and anti-diet and HAES and all of that, not because of school, but because of the stuff that I started doing outside of that. And I ended up getting a job as a dietary aide at a residential eating disorder facility, which I ended up spending about 2.5 years working at, not only as a dietary aide, but also as a dietitian. And that kind of strengthened my knowledge, within eating disorders, but also because of the amazing dietitians that I worked with, I just learned so much about intuitive eating and anti-diet and all of that. And, that's kind of how I ended up, just knowing everything that I do about that type of stuff. And I guess going back to how I know Chelsea, the whole anti-diet HAES thing kind of clicked for me when I started listening to then Drunk Dietitians, now with the actual Fork Pod. And that podcast just got me to see that there was just another way to live. And I think it now was maybe a year and a half ago. I'm forgetting the timeline, but Chelsea, the podcast manager, needed help on the podcast. And I DM'd her and we got to talking. And so now I help out with the social media for that podcast. But now we're friends. And that's how we all know each other. So small world.
Such a small world.
Very small world.
We're hoping to have Jenna and Sam on the podcast because, I mean, it's just like we have to at this point. Like we all like kind of know each other. It's the whole thing. So
yeah, no, they're awesome. But I mean, I guess besides, working and doing all of that, I love listening to podcasts. I mean, I love What the Actual Fork Pod. I love Maintenance Phase. That's another one of my favorite podcasts. What else do I like to do? I like to read. I've started getting really into reading fiction books. And I have, like, in the past couple of months, I don't know why, I just like have completely like dived right into that. And so now all I do is read on my Kindle. So, I mean, I like doing that too, and trying new foods. And yeah, I think that's all I can really think of right now.
Sums it up. Well, thank you so much for sharing that whole story about your history of disordered eating and eating disorders and going through college with all of that. I mean, it's hard enough in dietetics, as we all three know, but it's even harder when you have anything else going on health related too. Like, I can only imagine how much more difficult that was for you. So thank you for sharing all that. It's very vulnerable. Well, that does make total sense why this is like your topic. Like this is your thing. And we cannot wait to hear your expertise on this. And I'm sure your clients totally relate to this too. And like really appreciate having someone who has been in their shoes, I'm sure in a lot of ways. People tend to really appreciate that from their dietitian. So anyway, let's get right into it. Let's talk about, for those maybe who are tuning in and they're hearing us throw the words around disordered eating and eating disorders, they may be wondering like what the difference is. I don't think it's really talked about very much, actually, like the difference there. So will you please break that down for us?
Sure. So, disordered eating and eating disorders are two separate, they are two separate things, but they are both equally serious. So, and I know this definition really, really well because this is what I did my thesis on, but so disordered eating is kind of described as like a wide range of irregular eating behaviors. And that's the definition in the DSM-5 or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that's used to diagnose psychological mental health illnesses. So when it comes to disordered eating, these behaviors may not justify a clinical diagnosis, but like I said, they are super serious. So disordered eating can, range from, binge eating, frequent dieting, cutting out food groups, not being able to really think about anything but food, or having to rearrange your day-to-day life because you need to get to the gym. It could be, anxiety related to certain foods or food groups, or even cutting out foods or food groups because they're, and I'm using quotations, but good or bad. So with eating disorders, those are clinically diagnosed mental health disorders. And in order to be diagnosed with an eating disorder, you need to meet certain criteria that's in the DSM as well. And the DSM itself is super problematic, but unfortunately, that's what we have to use. And so with eating disorders, there's anorexia, there's restricting type or binge purge type. Then you have bulimia, OSFED or other specified feeding and eating disorder, ARFID, or I think it's avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, and then binge eating disorder. So that's kind of like the difference. Like one is that you need to meet by specific criteria in the DSM, and the other one, you don't have that criteria, but they are both serious. I kind of like to say that, with disordered eating, if you don't catch it and you don't address it, then it can turn into an eating disorder.
Thank you for that. I feel like that's a good and very nice breakdown of everything. And I don't know too much about the DSM and why it's problematic, but that is not why we're here today. I feel like we could probably do maybe an entire episode on that. But I like how you broke it down. I know that like people hear those phrases and they're kind of like, and I feel like oftentimes the disordered eating gets put down as like, oh, I don't have an eating disorder, so it's not as serious, when that's not the case. And it very much could, those disordered eating behaviors could lead to an eating disorder, and it's important it gets addressed. Let's dive a little bit specifically into like your situation and the topic for today. So is there any type of correlation between disordered eating and or eating disorders with or in college students?
So yes. So like I mentioned,
End episode.
I actually did my master's thesis looking at disordered eating and psychological risk factors in the college population. And, I kind of knew this before because it's what I went through myself, but there is a strong correlation with that. So I mean, it also kind of makes sense, right? You're going to college, regardless of where you go, it's a new environment. You have different stressors, whether it's like academic or financial or social, or, you know, it's your first time away from home most of the time, regardless of where you're going. You have new friend groups. You want to fit in, maybe. You now have, I guess, a say of when you eat or what you eat, depending on what your home life situation was. And so that's kind of like a perfect storm, so to speak, for an eating disorder to start coming to the surface, because it's not what, like, the new environment is not what caused the eating disorder, but it kind of just like makes it could trigger something, and that's what could make the eating disorder come to the surface. So just from doing my own research, you know, it was kind of estimated that, you know, 67% of college age women engage in disordered eating behaviors. And, you know, 4 to 9% of those college students are commonly diagnosed with an eating disorder. So, you know, there is that correlation with that. And it's just very prevalent within the college population. And, you know, when it comes to disordered eating or even an eating disorder, those are maladaptive coping strategies for something. You know, it's a way to deal with something really uncomfortable or really stressful. And when we think about college, you know, college can be really stressful. So it's definitely super prevalent within that population. You know, when it comes to, you know, stress and eating disorder symptoms, you know, that onset of those have really been associated with the college population because of everything that's been that can go on. And unfortunately, you know, within diet culture and the lovely society we live in, diet culture can become really prevalent within the college within just the college environment itself, whether or not it's, you know, you're doing sports, or you join Greek life, or, you know, you are trying to offset, and I'm putting quotes here, the freshman 15. So like those are all really problematic things that can trigger an eating disorder because of, you know, body dissatisfaction that might come to the surface. And like I said, wanting to fit in, all of those things. And, you know, it's unfortunate that it's so prevalent within the population.
Yeah, I was dying to ask you about the freshman 15 and how that played a role, because I think that's, in my brain, like the most obvious glaring one that I think of when I think of like disordered eating and college students. It's just like it's talked about so frequently, like whether it's from parents or peers, it's talked about so commonly.
It's so problematic, and I really hate it so much because honestly, when I was a freshman, I'm gonna age myself, but when I was over 10 years ago, like I had that in my mind of like, okay, Allison, you're going away to school, you need to make sure that you don't gain weight. And I was like, I had an eating disorder when I was in high school, but that kind of transpired into disordered eating afterwards. And I remember distinctly like not even sitting, I was in my freshman dorm room with my roommate when I had gone away to school. And I was doing Insanity. I don't even know if you guys know what Insanity is, but it was insane. Like I did it every single day for like 90 days because I needed to be active, or I was going to spin classes at the school's gym because I wanted to make sure that my binge drinking the night before, or the binge drinking that I was planning to do later on in the day, like didn't make me fat. And just thinking about how problematic that is, it's just insane to me, because that went on for so many years. Even when I like transferred out of my school for failing out, for not doing well, like I'd still spent so much time in the gym and skipping classes and doing all of that because I wanted to look good. Just stupid.
Yeah.
Just stupid right now to even think about.
Yeah. But it's so crazy how like in the moment and in that environment, it's so normalized, especially like when you mentioned the drinking. It was so crazy. Like I know like in Hannah's college lives, like we would like hear people like skipping meals because they're going to drink later, or like, oh, I have to like work out more because I drink, or what. And it's just, no one challenges that. It's just how it is, unfortunately. And that mindset is deep rooted in the college environment.
It is because of those like flyers that are posted like in the gym, like don't gain weight, or unfortunately, like in our own profession, like in our schooling, we learn that you need to eat healthy. That I feel like it's our professors who are kind of crusading that, like against that freshman 15 type of stuff. And unless you know better, you do it and you talk about it, and you just perpetuate the problem. It just makes it so much worse.
Yes. Yeah. Emily and I have both shared with our listeners like our experiences too in college. I think we both struggled in our own ways too. Like I know I had like our dorm rooms are so tiny, but I like had to have my scale in there. Like in the little amount of room that I had my scale that I got on every single morning. And I became super obsessed with going to the gym. Speaking of drinking, because I could never skip a day and take a day off and, allow my body to rest. One time I literally went to the gym, even though I was like ill from drinking too much the night before, but no days off. Like, can't do that. Like it's our brains, like the way they think about things, not only in college, but I mean, through all stages of life for different people. It's just, it stinks that we can get to that place.
It really does. And now that you say that, now I have like flashbacks.
Yeah.
This wasn't even, I mean, I was still in school because I was an undergrad for so long, but my sister's bachelorette weekend, we were in Ocean City, Maryland, and we drank a lot the night before, and I still insisted on going to the gym the next day, and I was like sweating out tequila. Like
exactly. I'm sure the whole, like, it's called the co-rec at Purdue. I'm sure the whole co-rec could just like smell me from like a mile away. It's so dumb. Emily, you weren't there. No, it was me. I don't want to name names actually, but it was two of our friends. I'll tell you off air. That came with me. They were not ill, so I don't know why they came. I don't know. I'm like getting all these flashbacks too, Allison. It's so funny. Like you're bringing up all these memories. It's just so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, like all of these little flashbacks of being in my undergrad classes, like whether or not I was, I feel so bad now for the crap I used to do, like taking fish with me into my classes because I had to eat fish, or
oh my gosh,
drinking protein shakes, like in the classes, like running from the gym to class. That way I was able to kind of get to class kind of on time, but oh my God. No wonder my GPA was so crappy.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, right? There's so much research now saying that, or just even showing that, the more that you pay attention or the more obsessed that you become with body image, or the more entrenched you become with disordered eating, you're not able to pay attention in school because all you're thinking about is food. And it makes so much sense. And something that I learned actually when I went back to school is that, your body needs a certain amount of carbohydrates just for your brain to process.
Just for your brain. Yeah.
And if you don't get that, then no wonder you can't think or do anything. And like it's science. There's a reason behind it.
I know. It's just such a shame that we didn't learn more about like what you just said, like how many grams of carbs our brain alone needs. Like you would think, and maybe there's some programs that do this that are different than ours, but we didn't learn that kind of stuff. Like we were learning about BMI and ideal body weight and that kind of stuff.
Bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah. We have a whole episode literally with that title. Our listeners know our thoughts on BMI. Don't worry. But I wish that we could have learned those things more in college too, which Emily and I plan to have an episode on that topic as well with hopefully a special guest. But anyway, kind of tied to this, one more quick question along like the lines of like disordered eating in college. Is there a certain type of I guess, eating disorder, like actual diagnosed eating disorder, that is the most common in college students?
So from the research that I did do, it was found that binge eating disorder is actually the most common and the most prevalent eating disorder within the college population. And I mean, I guess you can kind of speculate for a variety of reasons why that might be the case, but from what I found, that's the most prevalent eating disorder.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's just so crazy how I'm thinking about like how we're talking about how we wish like our programs discuss these topics more, but I'm thinking about like the students that don't have like, they aren't pursuing nutrition, no prior nutrition background, and they're just like in the college environment and they're just like living in it and just observing everything going on. And I like, in my mind, I'm like, call to action. We need advocacy. We need people bringing up these things. But I feel like mental health is something that has been slowly growing more at colleges and like the access to therapists. But I know at Purdue, our CAPS, like our main mental health center, was always like there was a wait list and it was hard to get into. And even then I like heard about some of the experiences people had there, and there was a wide variety. I also went there, so I can speak on that. I had good experiences, but I know that some people didn't. And they did have a section for eating disorders, but I feel like since we talked about how much it was normalized, people might not think that they have a problem that they need to go.
Mm-hmm. It's like because people praise those behaviors, right? So
oh yeah,
it's like when someone decides to say like, oh, I am dieting for this, or no, I can't eat that because I need to fit into a dress for whatever goes on in college. I don't know. I was a terrible student. I don't exactly know what happened at the but it's like those behaviors are praised, right? So
mm-hmm.
it's what people think that they're healthy and they're normal, and there is nothing normal about fasting. There's nothing normal about spending 3 hours at the gym and then skipping events or not being able to literally think about anything else other than food. Like that's not normal. And
Gosh,
it's just so unfortunate that it is so normalized within our society.
yes, I'm just getting more flashbacks. I just remembered that like I spent a lot of time at Purdue's gym was like kind of my thing, which was encouraged by others who were like, wow, you're so dedicated, that whole thing. But that meant I was surrounded. I hate the D word. Gosh, don't get me started.
Dedication.
Or discipline. Which one do you hate more?
Oh my gosh, you're so right. But I was surrounded, of course, in that environment by people who like were really into like bikini competitions, which that could be a whole can of worms to get into. I was like dead set on doing a bikini competition. Emily, do you remember this when I like thought I was going to do this?
Yes,
I did one.
You did do one?
I did like 5 or 6 of them. Yeah.
No way.
No way.
Oh my God.
Disorder even worse. What?
When did you like during college?
In undergrad. Yeah.
How did you?
Exactly. Like I thought I was going to have the time for that. Like I was double majoring. I worked like 3 jobs at a time. Like, okay. That's crazy.
I mean, I chose the bikini competition over my GPA. So
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. I'm dying to know more about that, but I won't make you go into that because I'm sure it's a whole thing. But yeah, like because I was surrounded by those who were doing that, I thought that I also had to do it because that's like what like the perfect health gym goer person would do, Or just so easily influenced sometimes, especially at that age. Like when your frontal lobe is not fully developed, you're just trying to like figure out who you are. And I thought I was going to be a bikini competitor, which who knows? Maybe I end up. No, I'm never going to do that. Let's be honest. I'm never going to do that. But like,
wouldn't recommend.
Yeah. Gosh, my brain is like being flooded with memories today. This has been crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's crazy to me that I thought that I could continue on with going to school and doing all of that stuff and still do bodybuilding competitions, and Nope.
Yeah.
Not at all. It's just crazy to me that that's like what I used to like. I have done probably like every diet out there. And it's just stupid to me. The stuff that I put my body through.
I know. And I know we have so many listeners that are like listening, like, yes, yes, yes. Like I totally relate. And so I want to go on to our next part, which is whether it's someone listening who's like a college age student, a high school student, or older. And you can definitely specifically talk to college age. That's what we're here to talk about today. But I guess generally speaking too, like what are signs and symptoms for our listeners to kind of take note of? Because I don't want them to be in our shoes where we're looking back 5-10 years later being like, oh, I wish I would have recognized that then. So what can they maybe be aware of that could be a sign of disordered eating or potentially an eating disorder?
I feel like the first thing that kind of really sticks out to me is cutting food out, cutting out a food group or cutting out a food. And this is not if you're allergic. If you have an allergy, don't have it. But, you know, if you're just cutting food out or you're cutting out a food group or you're skipping meals, or you're fasting, you know, because you think it's healthy, quotes, or you have constant fatigue and brain fog, chances are that there might be some disordered eating behaviors going on, but, you know, without really knowing your history or knowing what's really going on with you, like, it's hard for me to just say like, oh, that's disordered, but, you know, just, I feel like being honest with yourself can be really helpful too. I think skipping classes is probably a big one also. If you're skipping classes to go to the gym, or you're skipping or you're sleeping in because you're so tired because you're not eating enough, just different things like that. And, you know, it's funny that you ask that because after my thesis defense, someone on my committee actually asked me like, how can this be prevented, or how can, you know, professors or instructors at school, like how can they help their students, or what can they really notice? And I just, and they all knew my history about it. And I kind of just said, like, if you notice that you have students who their grades are slipping, or if they're not showing up to class, or you just notice that something's off, maybe just saying something. Because I know for me, if someone noticed, if someone just said like, hey, Allison, your grades are slipping a little bit, or Allison, like, you're not showing up for class, or I've noticed you missed a couple classes, what's going on? Just like that attention, that little attention to detail can definitely go a long way. So even if you're not the one who's going through it, but you have a friend or a sibling or just someone that you know in your class, and you notice that something is going on with them, you can ask them. You can ask, how can I support you? You don't have to go out and say like, hey, I think you're being disordered, but, you know, you can say like, hey, I noticed this. Yeah, I noticed X is going on. Are you okay? Just doing something like that can be really helpful.
It does go a long way.
Yeah.
I like that.
Snaps.
There we go.
Yep.
We talked about the issue. We provided examples, and you gave us something to work on.
We love a tangible takeaway. Yes.
Where are some of the places, like if people do some self-reflection, they realize that maybe some of these behaviors aren't the healthiest.
The H word and the D word.
Like,
I know. Saying healthy nowadays is like,
what does it mean?
Someone actually asked me at work the other day, how do you define health? And I was like, a really loaded question.
Can of worms.
Yes. Yeah. But say someone wants to look into getting help themselves, wants to find help for someone else if they don't know where to go and they're feeling really stuck. What are some places for them to start? Like, who should they work with, resources, anything you have to share?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to do is to seek out, you know, trained and credentialed eating disorder clinicians. And I mean, I can go off about that, but I think it's really important to make sure that whoever you're seeking help from has the education, has the credentials to really help you. And that's because with eating disorders, and eating, like, they're really serious. And if you don't go to somebody who knows what they're doing, I don't think it's going to be productive. I might end up making it worse. And I think this was like maybe 2 years ago. And if one of my friends listens to this, she's going to think it's hilarious. But when I was at work 2 years ago, and I remember this distinctly, she had showed me an Instagram profile, and it was this girl who was giving eating disorder support. Like, she was like marketing herself as like an eating disorder coach or a specialist or something like that. And when I went onto her Instagram, and I went onto her whatever website she was having, because of course I needed to see what was going on. And she didn't have any credentials. It seemed as if she had her own personal lived experience, and now she thought that she'd be able to help others, which, newsflash, that's not the way it works. Just because you went through something doesn't mean that you are qualified to help somebody go through that same process themselves. And I actually messaged her on Instagram, and I thought I was being nice compared to how I could have been. And she read the message, and then she blocked me. And, that was the end of that. But I think nowadays with social media too, you really just have to be careful with who you ask for help. So I say, first off, go to somebody who's credentialed and trained, and, somebody who will be validating. So, seeking somebody who is from that non-diet, weight inclusive, health at every size space can also really be helpful too, because you would be surprised. There are some eating disorder clinicians who also put on their profiles that they'll help you with weight loss, and you can't do both. So yeah.
That's a good point. I've stalked many websites of, I'll call them peers, I suppose, who say they have, like, if they see clients one-on-one, like, they'll list like all the different clientele they see, and it will say like eating disorders, and then like 2 bullets down, weight loss or weight management. And you're right, that's just a conflict. Like, even if they don't push on that person both of those things, they likely don't have that HAES weight inclusive anti-diet approach where it would be fully optimized for the person who has an eating disorder that needs that, most likely.
Right. But yeah, I would say that that's definitely somewhere to go for
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure there's stuff on college campuses that could be maybe helpful. I don't know. I never seeked it out myself, so I don't actually know what's on college campuses to help out. But there's nowadays with social media, it's I guess it's a good thing and a bad thing that being able to search for help is there, but also looking on I think like the National Eating Disorder website, they definitely have providers and stuff like that you can look into helping. I know that EDRD Pro is another site that you can look on, and they have a whole list of eating disorder dietitians that can definitely help you out. So just looking at that could be helpful.
Yeah. And we can link those below as well. We'll do that in our show notes. Well, Allison, those were our big, like, jarring questions on the topic. We like to always ask our listeners if there's anything else that we didn't ask that you felt was really important on this topic that you wanted to share, or do you feel like we did good covering the bulk of it?
I think if I was just going to say one last thing, it's that, eating disorders, disordered eating, mental health in general is just so stigmatized. And I feel like it's not talked about enough because people are shamed. Like they feel shameful, or they feel like maybe they're not sick enough, and they just don't feel like they deserve the help. But regardless of where you are, like, you deserve that help. And I think that it's important to really remember that and believe that. And the more that we talk about mental health, the less shame there is attached to it, less stigmatized it becomes, and the better treatment you're going to be able to get. And I think that's why I am so open with kind of where I came from and all the mess ups and all the crap that I went through, because it's kind of how I became the dietitian that I am. And even though I don't disclose to my clients, my past. I just, because it's, I don't know, people have mixed feelings about that, but I mean, I don't do it, but it kind of just made me the person that I am. And I mean, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that was a good way to wrap it up. I think if there was like one way to sum it up, that's the way to do it. Well, our listeners know, and now you get to finally partake in, we always do a bonus question at the end where we sometimes cover like kind of heavy topics around here, especially like disordered eating disorders. They're not always like light and butterfly and rainbows. So we try to like end with a really positive note and talk about a fun bonus question. So Allison, just to make sure before we get into the actual question, do you like cheeseburgers?
I do. I love cheeseburgers.
Because we've had incidents before where we kind of just like pick a random question and our guests are like, I don't even like that food. And we're like, well, drat, we'll pick a new one. So, okay, we'll go with it then. So our question, Allison, we'll let you go first as the guest. What is the best type of cheese in your opinion to put on a cheeseburger?
Cheddar.
Oh, wow. Confident. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel as though it's like the melting quality of it, the taste, both? Like what makes cheddar like such a confident choice for you?
I don't really think it's necessarily the melting quality. I think it's the taste. Like in my opinion, there's nothing better than a bacon cheddar cheeseburger. Maybe it's because when I was younger, I never had them, but yeah, I think that cheddar is the way to go. But cheddar, not just on burgers. I think cheddar really on everything.
Oh, except you're a cheddar girly.
Mozzarella belongs on pizza, but just cheddar on everything.
True. Emily, I don't have a thought in my head about this because I want all the cheeses. So I'll let you go next.
I
already know your answer too, but whatever.
You're going to hate me for this, but I prefer hamburgers.
I knew it.
To cheeseburgers because I don't like melted cheese. Allison, I'm lactose intolerant.
It's a whole thing.
But I still eat dairy. But something about melted cheese freaks me out. But I will note, I think I have to agree with cheddar. Because I was like, maybe Swiss. But the cheddar, I don't know what that spectrum means about me. But I feel like sharp cheddar just has such a nice taste to it. I'd probably like it if it didn't melt as much.
Okay, so just like a block of cheese, like
I'd probably be happy with it.
I mean, honestly, that would probably be really, really good too.
I mean, cheese is so good.
All that extra calcium.
Maybe. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be your answer, Emily. I am surprised that you did pick a cheese, though. All in all,
I was going to choose a cheese, and then I remembered that I don't like melted cheese. Yeah. So you knew my answer before I did, but
yeah.
Melted cheese on anything, so even like nachos or pizza or just
I like
your decision making on this seems very random to outsiders. Like it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Hey, there's no judgment. No judgment coming from me.
I like pizza that has minimal cheese.
Okay.
Nachos, I like when it's like, I don't want to say fake cheese, but when it's like you think of like baseball,
okay,
like game nachos. Like I would never like make it myself because then it's too gooey.
So like cheese sauce poured onto the like. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is like the ultimate melted cheese, but we'll just pass that.
There's no logic.
There's no logic, but it's okay. That's what makes you Emily.
Yes. So Hannah, tell us your 3 cheeses you're about to choose.
Allison, my whole thing on this episode or this podcast is that I can't make decisions. I think it has to do with like I'm an Enneagram 9. Do you know the Enneagram very well?
I've heard of it. I've never done it myself, but I have heard of it.
Well, the 9 is like the peacemaker. We like everyone to be happy. We can't make decisions. We hate conflict. So when it comes to like favorites of anything, I can't pick. So to appease you guys, I think cheddar sounds great. And I really do like cheddar cheese a lot. My go-to, like we always have, if we do like homemade burgers, we always have Colby Jack on hand. But I would not argue it's like the best cheese to put on a cheeseburger. It's just a simple, easy, basic one.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had like a Gouda on a cheeseburger?
I haven't, but I guess I'm kind of similar to Emily where okay, so maybe not super similar because I really love cheese, but I'm really specific with the cheese that I like, and I honestly only like cheddar and Parmesan and mozzarella, and those are the only three that I like.
Okay.
So yeah, not really a big fan of.
Don't branch out far.
I don't really branch out far when it comes to cheese.
Yeah.
You know what you like.
I think that's good. I think that's good because then you don't have my brain where it's like, oh, I want like a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and you can't make up your decision. It's just
I'm like that with everything else, just not cheese.
Okay. That's good to know. I feel supported in this moment. I don't know. I don't have an answer, guys. I mean, Gouda's really good. Cheddar's really good. Cheese is just so good and it's all melty and delicious. I love melted cheese. Emily and I are polar opposites on this one. Okay, I have to pick one. I'm gonna say just Colby Jack. Make it simple. It's what I always have. It works. Okay.
We learned a lot about each other.
We did.
Allison, we always like to leave the listeners with an option to follow you along if they want to learn more from you. So this is your time to shine. You can plug anything your heart desires. Social media, links, whatever you want them. Like if they want to hear more from you, or even if it's not you and you just want to plug something, this is your time.
So I tried to do the whole dietitian Instagram and I got super lazy and I just never ended up doing it. So if people want to find me, it's kind of like a mix of nutrition and my whole own personal thing. So you can follow me on Instagram at Allison Leia. I'm sure you guys can just put it in the show notes. Like dying to find me, but you'll actually, if you scroll back a little bit, like maybe like a year ago, you'll see that I actually got very into TikToks. I was actually using TikTok to make my video, and then I was posting them on my Instagram because I didn't want to post on TikTok. So a bunch of funny TikToks on there. I might get back to it. But yeah, so you'll see that. I don't really have any other social medias. Maybe eventually I'll get into TikTok, but I was so adamant for so long not to do it. And then I started realizing that making the reel, I have to say that with the first reel I ever made, it took me an hour to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I decided that I didn't want to do it anymore, but maybe I'll do it again. So that's really all I have in terms of if anyone ever is dying to work with me and I can be your dietitian. I do work for a private practice, Chloe Sereno Nutrition. So you could find me over there if you're looking for nutrition counseling. But other than that, I'm just really on Instagram.
Okay. We'll link it all below. Hopefully we all get to see some Allison reels. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
They are kind of funny. I do have to but I do have to say that the two of you with your reels, Hannah, you have me dying sometimes.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Reels. I feel like maybe it was like a month or two ago, but like the reels that you just started stringing along, I think I just like laughed at all of them. They were so funny.
Well, thanks. I really do try very hard. So that comment means a lot to me.
But the both of you, like it is really funny. So maybe eventually do it.
It's fun. It really does. Like the first few you make takes far too long and you're like, this is stupid. But Emily and I can crank out a video in like 10 seconds now if we need to. Like it just gets so much easier.
Yeah.
So totally worth it. It's fun to express your thoughts on the internet sometimes.
No, it is. People have mixed feelings about this, but I thoroughly enjoy having an argument with somebody on the internet. I do.
You're built for the internet.
We need to hire you as our social media manager too. Because
I have no issues with it. Eventually, if it gets to be too much, I will block the person. But I, especially now that I do have my credentials to back me up, I'm just like, back up. like dietitian. I actually had an argument in my DMs a month ago with some idiot about me promoting the obesity epidemic.
Yep. Daily basis.
And I actually sent that. I was just typing stuff out and I actually screenshotted the conversation. I sent it to Chelsea and I was like, you would find this funny. So he never responded to me. So it's like,
wow.
Okay. That's how you know.
That's how you won. Yeah.
You got them if they don't respond.
Right.
Or if they keep going.
It's just insane to me. And then there was somebody else, and this was when I was posting TikToks on my Instagram, but someone was like shaming the fact that I was promoting having snacks. I'm just like, fuck you. Like, don't take away my snacks.
Like literally anything you could ever say on the internet about nutrition or really any topic, someone will find a reason to fight it. It's absolutely absurd.
I know. It's like, well, everyone thinks that they are a nutrition professional. Yeah.
They all eat, so
exactly. They all eat, so I guess they all know what they're doing.
Yeah. Who needs dietitians?
Right?
Well, Allison, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. It's going to be such a good episode for our listeners, especially those who maybe are either going into college. We have a lot of listeners in like the 18 to like 24 age group. So I'm sure there's plenty like us who maybe are going through that and don't even know it. So hopefully this reaches those ears. I think that'd be so helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you guys.
Well, thank you guys for listening so much. And we will see you next week. Emily, any parting words? I kind of just like ended our episode.
That was much faster than I normally go. So we'll end it now before it keeps going on.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening.